And we do welcome back the Reverend Diane Stark from the Unity Church in Muskegon, going through changes as well. We look forward to her message in just a moment. Diane is from the Washington, D.C. area, graduated from the University of Maryland as a terrapin, and has always been interested in teaching, whether it's in the ideas or academics that she shares with us. She grew up as a preacher's kid, her mother having a Unity church for 20 years in the Washington, D.C. area. She was ordained with Unity in 2006 in the Worldwide Ministries and has been the leader of Unity of Muskegon for over 9 years now. Her vision for the future is a world of cooperation among all nations and stewardship of the earth that is balanced and holistic. And she presents Are You Snowed In? With a big question mark as we look forward to that.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And thank you for asking me to speak here tonight. I'm always honored to speak to the Coptics. So I'm not going to be talking tonight about the wonderful truths that Janice just shared with us. That's exactly what I'm not talking about. And it's kind of counterintuitive to have the floor and speak of the limited ideas of the ignorant human consciousness that prevail in our earth plane in many areas. But that's what I mean by Are You Snowed In? Because we live in a kind of we spiritual people live in a kind of a dual existence, almost almost a split personality kind of thing, where we know these truths of being that are unlimited, that are infinite, that are so freeing. But at the same time, we get blanketed by the prevailing worldview that we live in. It's a soup that we live in. We have to contend with it. And I find that it's very useful to actually distinguish the fine points of what those views say, of how and where they come from. Where did we get this stuff that parades itself as science? That, we're supposed to create our understanding of what is true, what is the nature of reality on the basis of the scientific method, hypothesis, and testing. And when we look at it closely, it's not that at all. So what I've done, and I hope you'll be very impressed, I've memorized the 10 dogmas of what's called the science delusion that the scientific researcher Rupert Sheldrake has written a book about. In America, it's called Science Set Free, but in the UK, it's called The Science Delusion. And just to show you how steeped in these ideas our culture at large is, he did a TED Talk on this, and the TED Talk was banned. And in the Wikipedia, it says that his work is pseudoscience. And it's not at all. And the banned TED Talk was brought back by popular demand. But I just realized, that over the past couple of years, this has been such a useful reference point to me to hold on to, not being swept away by or snowed in, snowed in a sense. We get trapped, we get the weight of this negativity sometimes seeps into our, I'd say, energy field, and just it's that same feeling of being snowed in the dead of winter, when the sunlight is so rare and it comes out so late and it goes down so early and it's so cold and it's hard to get around, and there's precipitation coming down and everything is wet and cold and icy, snowed in. That feeling is what I'm trying to liberate us from in our mentality. So what I memorized for you today is the 10 dogmas. Now, what Rupert Sheldrake explains to us is that people who say, I don't believe in God, I believe in science, they think that science knows the nature of reality, knows the truth, and that people who have religious contexts are under the control of dogmas or beliefs. But what they don't realize is that the scientific world, or the prevailing worldview of materialism, is just as much a set of dogmas that are based on belief that have no validation actually in science. So here we go. Okay, you ready? The first dogma that he distinguishes is that nature is mechanical. The universe functions like a machine. We're machines, plants are machines, animals are machines, our hearts are pumps, our minds are computers, our eyes are cameras, everything is a machine. The second dogma is that everything is made of matter, and matter is unconscious. Number 3, all of nature is governed by laws that have been in place since the Big Bang and will never change and have never changed. The laws of physics or the laws of nature never change. Number 4, the total amount of matter and energy in the universe is fixed and has not changed since the Big Bang and will never change. Number 5, nature is purposeless. And, sometimes we might think that the theory of evolution has a purpose, which is survival. That is not part of the theory of evolution. The theory of evolution says that random mutations result in survival, but it's not the purpose of the mutations. So evolution or nature is purposeless is another dogma of the science so-called delusion. Number 6, memory is stored in the brain. Because if everything is material, then memory is somehow material, and it's somehow stored in the brain. And no one has ever been able to understand how that works or where it is. But nevertheless, it still prevails, that notion. Number 7, biological inheritance is material. In other words, what we inherit from our ancestors is stored in the genes, or some other way of materially passing that along, and that the inheritance is material. At number 8, minds. The mind is the activity of the brain. Whatever activity we experience of consciousness is totally occurring within our heads, in the brain. And when that brain dies, all the activity dies with it also. So there's no possibility of an afterlife. Number 9, psychic phenomenon is illusory. Illusory means it cannot possibly be true. It's an illusion and it's not real. Psychic phenomenon. And last but not least, the 10th thing is that mechanistic medicine is the only medicine that actually works. So it's the only kind of treatment that can be given money to pay for, because it is all the only thing that works. So if you want to take the time to look into how Rupert Sheldrake explains how we got these dogmas, it's not that complicated, but it starts with the philosophers, with Descartes. And Descartes said that there's 2 realms of reality, the material and the spiritual. And the material is everything except God, angels, and the human soul. So therewith began a real dichotomy between our minds and our bodies. And there were other philosophers who disputed that at the time. And it's very interesting that what we've come around to in our modern social milieu is a completely materialistic philosophy of the nature of reality that is the result of philosophers not scientists. And the subsequent embracing of whatever philosophical was made, assumption was made, assertion was made, and this became regarded as what's true, as the truth. And now the prevailing worldview, the worldview that we live in, is that science knows the truth, and all we have to do is figure out, for the basic big picture of the cosmos, and we just figure out the details and fill it in. So this has put us in a position of not being able to actually understand how consciousness could exist, which is absurd, is it not? And we are living in this soup now. We're living in this soup, and what I see is that in the mainstream of thought, our media, our books, our superstars of thinking and self-realization and growing within, really soulful experience. This worldview is falling apart and it's changing, and this new worldview of spirituality is really catching on. So if you're feeling snowed in, don't let that get you. Don't let that be real for you, because help is on the way. It's crumbling. It's really crumbling. I don't feel knowledgeable enough to go into detail about how some of these theories can really just fall apart when you closely scrutinize them with the eyes of quantum physics of the day. And I encourage you to just go on YouTube and look for Rupert Sheldrake, The Science Delusion, and follow one of those lectures, because it's so liberating to see that that we've been taken in by this idea of that material substance is unconscious. And we know that it's not. We, spiritual people, we know that the mind of the divine is inherent everywhere, in everything. So it's a wonderful progress that's happening right now in the world. And don't let it get you snowed in, So now I want to talk about another thing that can get you congested or snowed in or oppressed, besides a worldview that is predominantly materialistic now, moving on, is our emotions that don't get processed. And I just want to share two little incidences of that illustrates how important it is for us not to distract ourselves from feeling our feelings. Because if we don't actually feel them and honestly take responsibility for our emotional reactions, we can't release them. They don't leave us. They stay in there and really can cause disharmony within our being. So one example is this old gentleman that had, he aged out of his job and he retired, and he didn't feel, he came to a friend and he says, I feel so worthless because I'm retired now, and so I've gotten myself a job. I just don't like to sit at home and feel like I'm not a productive member of society. So I've got myself a job at the car wash, and I have to drive myself to work every day, but my truck needs a part. So could you help me buy that part? And so his friend said to me, well, why is that my problem? You should go home and just feel your feelings. And that's a fact. That's a fact, that we use so many distractions, so many, elusive bypaths of rationalization to avoid our feelings. So if we just sit with our feelings and take responsibility and own them and realize that's just my reaction to a situation. That's my reaction. I made that up. It dissipates. It's amazing how it just leaves us. And I experienced that myself this past few weeks. I was given I was told, we want you to get your reports in before the meetings now, Diane. We want you to get your reports finished and submitted in plenty of time for our, and I'm like, I got really mad. So I had to sit with that for a while and think, now this has nothing to do with what other people are doing or what they're thinking, or, this has to do with me not liking being told what to do. This has to do with me having a button pushed where I feel dominated and I feel oppressed. And that is not what I want to do, So I just really separated, and I think this is a dance we do, all of us do all through life, that something happens to us and we get all involved in that thing that happened to us, and we don't take responsibility for how we're reacting to what it is that happened. So after I sat with myself and said, well, wow, I really have a button there that got pushed, don't I? I really don't like to be told what to do I? No. So, and when I just admitted that, the feeling left me. And I'm so grateful for that, because I don't want to carry that kind of feeling towards anyone or within my own being. It's not healthy, and it's not freeing. And now lastly, I want to tell you how about being snowed in. One of the most difficult things we have to cope with in our society is public education. And it just doesn't change very easily, does it? I mean, and it's so, it's so adversarial, it's just such an outdated model of, the kid is a container and we shovel the information in, and it's very, it's not organic, and it's not transformative, and it's not honoring of the soul of the child. And how can we expect that in a public setting? I don't know. So I decided to make an experiment out of my own children. And it started, when they got to be about 4 years old. There were two, they were 3 years apart. So the 4-year-old, and they kind of spoke together as one voice, even though the younger one was so young, when they said, Mommy, we had to go to school now. And I go, well, you don't really have to go to school, because, you can be homeschooled. And I was hoping I could homeschool you. They say, no, we had to go to school so we can have friends. And I said, well, that's not really true. They have events and gatherings for kids who are homeschooled so that they can be friends with each other. No, we want to make friends at school. We had to go to school to have friends. Okay. All right, then. Well, then if you're going to go to school, there's some things that you need to know. Because when I went to school, my young children, my dear girls, when I went to school, I was very unhappy in school. I did not like it at all, because I always knew that, at any moment, the class of children could become a brutal mob and be cruel to each other. And I hated it when that happened. And I said, so I just want you to know that when you go to school, at any moment, your classroom can become like a brutal mob of people, and that all it takes is one person to just say to the air, when there's a quiet moment, Well, I'd really like us all to be friends with each other. That's all it takes is one person to speak for that. In a quiet moment, for one person to say, well, I'd really like to see us all be more helpful to each other. And you can always be that person. Well, for some odd reason, I mean, I only had this little talk with them one time, but they took it into their hearts and they took it to school with them. And it's like, you know, so if you can't fix the school, if you can't change the school, maybe you can change the pupils who go to the school to make it different. And that wasn't all I told them. I said, now, you can get an education by going to the library and reading about the things that you're interested in. And you don't need to go to school to get an education. But what is the one thing that you cannot get without going to school? Well, an education? No, I just told you that you can get an education without going to school. But what's the only thing you can't get? You cannot get. The only thing that you can get from going to school. What do you think it is? Well, they gave up. We don't know. We give up. It's an excellent academic record. And if you're going to give your precious time to going to school, you should at least come away with an excellent academic record, because otherwise you're just wasting your time. They owe that to you. So you walk into school on the first day of school and you walk up to the teacher and you just say, what do I have to do to get this right? What do I have to do to get an A around here? And your teacher will be so happy with you because they'll know that you want to do the best you can and that you want to do what they're going to be offering you to do. So right then, you started off on the right foot and you've got a partnership. And I said, and I'll tell you one more thing that you can do that'll ensure you get one grade higher than you would have gotten. You sit very close to the front. You lift your face up towards your teacher. You open your eyes up wide and you kind of smile a little bit. You can think about anything you want to think. You don't have to think about what they're saying, but at least have your face open and your eyes open and sit up to the front, and your teacher will give you a grade higher than they would have given you. I'll tell you that for sure. And in spite of themselves, they couldn't help but listen to what the teacher was saying. And I said, and besides that, it is true, while it is true that you go to the library and you learn all this stuff and you don't have to go to school to learn stuff. But think of this, the things that your teacher tells you, the information that she gives you, saves you a lot of work and saves you a lot of time. And so what could she possibly say that wouldn't matter, that would not be interesting? I mean, are you not interested in how animals live in climates that humans can't live in? Are you not interested in the fact that human beings long ago had cities that didn't have running water? How did they get clean water? Are you not interested in that? And they go, no, I'm interested in that. So I was able to convince them that everything is interesting and everything has an application, and all knowledge is sacred, and it all has a derivative of coming out of human being's search to adjust to life on this earth, So that worked out really well, and I had such validation from that, from doing that, from creating that interest and that approach to going to school, because their teachers wrote it in their report cards. That this child, she contributes ideas to the discussions, and she's interested in everything, and she's fair to everyone, and she promotes all the others to be friends with each other. The teachers wrote about this, and they loved having the personalities that my children brought to school, because it contributed so much to the classroom culture. So my experiment really worked. And so many children get snowed in by feeling dominated and excluded, and the social and educational maladies that plague kids in school. It's not necessary. And so that is my message to you tonight, that we do live in a world right now that is still quite diluted, that is that carries that carries such limited ideas, and we cannot allow that limiting, ignorant kind of materialism to cloud our own thinking. We have to maintain our faith and our understanding of a new worldview, that we are one humanity, that we are all committed to the greater good, that we have all within us the capacity to join together and live in harmony and abundance, fellowship and love. So with that, I leave you. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And it's amazing how the world is so materialistic in different ways now, and getting back to the foundation with spirituality, still bringing the science in it too, as we do, at least as a metaphysical view of it, is really important. And Diane, there's social media that with the kids today, they just throw everything out there and talk about getting snowed in with congestion and with words. And do you see that online as well, like in the social medias like Facebook and something like social bullying, I think it's called?
That's a whole other sermon almost. The social media is so contaminated with the fascination we have of celebrity right now. Everybody's trying to think of a way to have celebrity without actually doing anything. And I think that young people experience depression and anxiety because they don't have celebrity, and they want celebrity, and they don't understand, like our whole society is celebrity crazed right now. And that social media is like a tool. It's like an access, well, if I can get 15 million people to follow my tweet, well, so I think that's almost a poison that we have to really unpack to become authentic to our own lives.
Would you say that is separation consciousness?
Oh, yeah.
That draws us to idolize other people. I mean, my daughter watches some of that crap. I hate reality TV, but like the Kardashians and the Real Housewives of whatever. And I look at that for about a minute and I go, get a life. You have your own life to deal with. Leave them alone.
Well, it's quite a mode of the day, and it's not going to be simply tell people just get over it. We're really steeped in it right now, and there are casualties from it. I think
so too. It's always looking to somebody else is better than I am. Everybody's better than I am. How can I have a life like they have? Or if I can't, then I live in a fantasy by watching them do the stupid stuff they do. And those ladies fight. They fight all the time, and it's just craziness.
It's so true. It's so true. And we're, in a sense, what I'm trying to say is we're trapped by the media tools that we have. There's almost a conspiracy, to trap the human soul so that it's sabotaged by this whole myth of what fame will do for you.
What about the woke problem in school? I have one granddaughter that in high school that really she struggles with it, not knowing what's right to do or what to, she's not against anybody, but it's a topic in school. It's really just beyond what we could deal with ourselves when we were in school.
Well, that's a really excellent question. And the whole concept of what woke means is so it's contaminated with, truth, being awakened and being influenced by propaganda, that it's very complicated to sort that out.
Yeah.
It has to be so hard raising or being, let's put it that way, being in school today.
Mm-hmm.
Growing
Yeah.
up today.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank God I grew up when I did.
Right.
I think I'm sane. But we used our imaginations. We didn't resort to a toy in a video game box to, where they have shooting and killing, and then we wonder why a 6-year-old brings a gun to school and kills his teacher or shoots his teacher. That's all he watches all day long. He doesn't think there's anything wrong with it. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm 10 years older than my brothers. They're twins. And, whatever we would get for Christmas, they'd be playing with the boxes that came in more than they did the toys.
Well, I think we are asleep at the wheel as a society. We have not anticipated the deepest emotional needs of our young and made sources for that. And one of the big teachers who helps with that is this guy Gabor Mate. He's a pediatrician who has gone spiritual, gone viral, and he does videos, and he encourages us how to raise our children in these times of toxic influences. But you have to get ahead of the game. You have to get out in front of their emotional needs and not just wait till it becomes problematical.
One of the things that I've been thinking a lot lately and speaking, because we went through the pandemic, we went through the 2020 elections and all of this stuff, media, they get one, I don't know where they get their sources, but they get one story and it'll play on every single media out there. And the thing you have to think about is who owns the media or who's on their governing board or whatever. And it's their agenda that's being played out. And they don't even have investigative journalists, hardly. I mean, I think they have some, but instead of going out and doing the work of getting the real story, they just parrot what everybody else is saying. And you can't get the truth. You can't get the counter. It's like, science that comes out. I can't remember what it was recently, but that it came out from PubMed.gov kind of a thing. It was published on there or whatever. And supposedly a government study. And I said, government is not separate from the industry. So you have to look at that and then look at people who are looking at it differently and get as much as you can of all of these sides and then kind of intuit it yourself. And that's the science thing again. But the industry is influencing everything.
It's all money. It's where the money goes.
Money.
Yeah. It's where the money comes from. Who the government and the businesses are all. We didn't realize this was happening, because it grew, and a shock to learn.
A very important thing to me from the stand of a perspective most recently is considering the tremendous impact that money has on our lives. And that's timed with or associated with our ability to sell stuff in order to make more money. And that's essentially the media. we've always been doing what we say we need to do, and that is to make determinations about what's right and what's wrong. It's just that we've suddenly tripped into more possibilities than we ever had before. And trying to figure out how to adjust to that is not easy. Earlier, someone had said that things seemed to be better, when we were a lot younger. And what popped in my head was that's the song of everybody if we live long enough. If we live long enough, we all have that same story. Things used to be better than they are now.
I think when we were younger, we weren't always aware of so much. As we get older, I think that, when we're younger, we only are focused on the immediate surroundings. As we get older, we have more and more coming at us. And so we become more aware of what's happening. But
Well,
I think of Jesus Christ Superstar, the musical, and basically it did say there was a worship of money, and that's been that for who knows how long.
Well, I've been thinking with the vibration, the frequencies, the consciousness raising that's been happening, that a lot of the crap out there that we've been seeing is all that stuff that is coming out to be observed and it's like something you said, Diane, brings that to mind. It's like, as soon as you identified your emotion, then it kind of dissipated. And I think it follows on that line of thinking that this is just coming up to be identified and rise above it with love and compassion, and then it will dissipate. It will go. It's anyway, that I keep it's, you can't say anything anymore. It seems like somebody has an objection to anything you say. And
I object.
thank you.
You must be on Twitter.
I am,
Well, I think Diane's message for her girls going to school is good for anybody, anywhere.
It's great. Yeah.
Thanks.
Let's all be friends. How can we work together? All of this competition is not good for us. If we can cooperate and make things work, that's the whole key. Let's work together. Let's be friends. Let's see how we can do this.
Diane, I really enjoyed your talk tonight. We're very good. I loved it.
Thank you.
Your daughters are very fortunate that they had you as their mother going into school, because
Thank
No
you.
kidding.
if every student started their school with that kind of a talk, boy, what a difference it would make. The teachers would certainly love you for it.
how can we
Well,
all get along?
And the only reason we don't have that is because all of us have this victim mentality, from school where, we felt like we had to conform, and, it just put us at a disadvantage.
Hey, I want to get Paul's input, man. Hi, Paul. How you doing, man?
Hi. Can you hear me? I don't know.
I can, man. Yeah.
You can?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I had to unmute myself.
Okay, man.
No, I like to listen. As far as money goes, I used to be one that it didn't come easy. It just never did. Growing up earlier, I don't know if it had to do with race. That could have been part of it. Just, it was harder for me. The struggle was harder. I had to fight extra hard to get what I needed. John's been a great help, just a tremendous help. Mr. Davis, Nancy, they've been just wonderful throughout the years. And I've been on and off with the Coptics and what. And the teachings just are, they're wonderful. They're just great. But as far as the money aspect, I've finally gotten into my own business and started doing my own business. And it's a trucking business, okay? I thank God my wife, she's a wonderful individual. She's able to, she can save money like no other. I mean, she will pull ant off of the sidewalk and pull $1 out of it. Okay. She's able to, that's how good she is with saving money. So she's taught me the aspect of money, how to finance, how to save. And I've got some wonderful things through it. But at the same time, it's a lesson. It's a learning lesson, the whole thing. So they say money's the root of all evil. No, it can be. It depends on your mindset. It's all a mindset. Everything's a mindset, you know. I try to use mine to help who I can and what and I have just gotten back with you folks, and I, in a sense, feel like I've let the Coptics down. I've heard about the organization closing the doors as far as the building, and I thought, wow, you know, I didn't realize we were at that point. It's everything happens for a reason. We know that. So, but I kind of felt like maybe I should have been there earlier. I could have been able to help with that. But it's wonderful to see everybody. Everyone's striving to be the light source of humanity. I keep going through, and I'm getting into meditating more and doing a lot more than what I used to. Of course, I've been through a lot of rocky roads and bumps, and we all have. But it's all a learning lesson. I appreciate what I feel on this channel. You guys are wonderful. The energy you give is just tremendous. And I'm glad to actually be back and grow and learn and continue forward. So, namaste to everybody. Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Namaste to you.